Good evening, everybody. Nice to see everyone on my screen. I'm very hopeful that next fall we can get together in person like we used to. That will be great for me. I'm just starting to get back into live meetings myself through work and other venues, and it's really a refreshing change after a year. What I'm affectionately calling March is the month of mishaps. It's nice to assemble again with some DAC members getting the invitations and logging in tonight. Hopefully you saw that I sent out the next 4 meeting invitations, which take us through the end of May. There's 3 actual meetings, and then 1 is for the Board of Education presentation. That will either be a Zoom or you can live stream it on the YouTube channel. Our agenda this evening.
Jack, do you want me to share my screen?
Let me get this one out of the way and then you can take it.
All right.
We're going to do our typical welcome, and Erin has an icebreaker to walk us through. We're going to give Tracy a few minutes to talk about her transition to Jeffco. I'll try to keep it together. We've got a Uip Simplification update, very quick, very brief. We're going to ask for some assistance from one of the charter subcommittee members. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on the SAC initiative. Erin's going to run that tonight. We're really excited about where we are on that project. And then very quickly, we want to hit some DAC structure work tonight, and we want to hit one topic about opening up membership for the next school year. And then we will close and identify. I just realized I didn't share my screen at all. We'll identify some next steps, and then we'll wrap up. So that is our agenda for this evening. Erin, if you would like to take over for the icebreaker, that would be great.
Okay. And is that working? Are you guys seeing a nice turquoise screen? Thank you, Tracy. Okay. So I understand this is something that folks, fun icebreaker that's been done in person. So if you're able, I'm going to ask you to share your videos this evening. We are going to do a little Zoom scavenger hunt. So I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to say maybe 2.5 minutes. And I'm going to ask you in whatever space you are Zooming to find these 3 items. And then I'm going to ask you to hold these 3 items in front of your camera to share. So this is and then we get to ask people about what items they found in their Zooming space. Are the directions clear? It looks like people are scampering about. Okay. Please, I hope nobody has to like run to their garage and find their skis or something. Might be a little heavy to haul the snowshoes in front of the camera.
I'm looking in my closet for something from the 20th century.
Remember, 20th century, not the 19th.
Oh my God, Vanessa, that is so funny. I love that comment.
My daughter loves to say things like, oh my gosh, Mom, that was in the 1900s. Oh my, well, yeah, technically, yeah, that did happen.
Technically, there was a lot that happened in the 1900s.
Right. A lot of my life happened in the 1900s.
Okay, folks, are we ready to share? It looks like, Lisa, maybe you need another moment. Okay, I see a little scampering. Okay, folks. Let's do our video share. No, I want to see your sign, Lori. No,
What are we doing? Everything? Are we putting everything?
it's all, yeah, if you can get your 3
Oh my
items.
gosh. Well, that's challenging.
Oh, very good. Oh, very good. Okay, now is your chance to make inquiries. And first, Dave, I'm just really curious, is that the Abominable Snowman? And which category might that represent?
This is an item from the 20th century that my brother got me back in the late 1990s. This was one of our favorite, Christmas shows as kids growing up, so he got this for me.
That's great. And Tracy, did you get a dog, or is it just a dog sticker?
It's a dog sticker. It says Diva Life, but it's a Frenchie. And I would just say it's connected to a hobby, because I have now a hobby of walking my dog. Like, this is my favorite thing to do. And I do have a little Frenchie. I did get her before COVID, but my favorite thing to do now is walk little Birdie, because of COVID, obviously. And then here's my AirPods, because I never had AirPods before COVID. And I bought them the week that we went into the shutdown. And I told my husband, I cannot spend $100. What is this going to do to our finances? Like, COVID is bad. I'm not sure, the uncertain. And he's like, Tracy, spend $100 on AirPods. It'll get you through the pandemic. And he did. It did. And I love my AirPods. So those are my.
And he was clear. He was right. You probably had no idea how much you were going to need those.
Yeah. Yeah. My third item is my glasses, because it helps me with my screen. My eyes are like killing me all the time. So anyway, I wish I was in person with you guys, but it's great to see you anyway.
All right. What other questions? I'm seeing lots of objects still up. What do you guys have questions about?
Vanessa,
Or curiosities?
is that a second monitor for homework?
Yes, I never had a monitor at home. I never even took my computer home from work. I don't even have my work email on my phone. So having all of this stuff at home is crazy. And my basketball shoe is my hobby, which is coaching basketball.
Awesome.
And I don't want to show you my clothes from the 1900s.
And I want to know what Jamie's big poster was. What is Jamie's big poster?
So I, before COVID, but not too much before, picked up diamond painting. And so you get a canvas and you get thousands of tiny little beads that you adhere to the canvas, and they make the picture. And so this is 20 by 28, the size of this thing, but it's one of the doctors from Doctor Who. I know someone in this group is also a Whovian, so that is my hobby.
Those diamond art things are so cool. We have 6 of them. They got started and they haven't finished. They are awesome. And ours are all these space, like they're all galaxy space ones. But though that is huge, by the way.
It's not even the biggest one that I have, Tara. I have one that is 24 by 35.
Oh my God. I had to get my kids to take them off the dining room table because they were just, they started them. I am ready to like go do them. And then they got mad when I finished because I was like, you're not doing it. I'm going to do this. And they're like, no, we want to do another. And I'm like, no, you don't.
I love that.
These are for me.
So much, Tara. I agree with all of that.
Great.
Okay.
Well, thank you everybody for participating, and maybe we can loop back. There's some other items at the end folks want to share. Okay. Thank you everybody for participating in the scavenger hunt activity. And with that, we're going to turn it over to our formal agenda. So I will stop screen sharing, and I think Tracy, you're up.
Oh, I'm up. I'm unmuted. I thought I was muted, and I said, oh, and I thought I was muted. Well, hello, everyone. It's very nice to see you all. I think you maybe know, and if you don't, I'll share with you that I have been named the superintendent finalist in Jeffco. Yay. I'm really excited. It's a lot of mixed feelings because of leaving Adams 12, obviously. And then as of this today around 1 p.m., maybe 1:30 in the afternoon, they approved everything and I'm now official. So I don't have to say finalist any longer. I am now the Jeffco superintendent, which feels very strange. And you're the very first group of people that I've gotten to say that to. So I feel honored to be able to say that to you tonight. I said I've said multiple times to many groups of people over the last couple of weeks, the first feeling that I had when they called me to tell me I was a finalist was one of like just incredible wave of gratitude. And obviously, gratitude for the opportunity to have a job like this and the potential impact on staff and families and students, and just being part of a team like Jeffco, a district that has such a tremendous reputation, and a district, that I think is excellent, that my own children go to, that I grew up in, that I currently live in, and it's my community, right? So to be able to serve Jeffco as a mom and a community member is kind of a dream come true for me, honestly. So just tons of gratitude for that. But really want to let you know that there's just this tremendous sense of gratitude for the experiences and the people that have contributed to my journey. Many, and it's all of you, and it's the DAC, and it's the LRPAC, and it's the staff in Adams 12, the cabinet team, the people who I get to spend so much time with, and who I've learned from, and who I've learned with and grown with, in both Adams 12 and in Denver Public Schools. And so I just want to thank you. Many of you I have spent many years with, learning and growing and figuring out how do we do this DAC thing, but also how do we figure out really cool, complex problems and issues that are facing us as a community in Adams 12. And I'm just so grateful for all of you. And I'm so grateful for my experiences in Adams 12. It's a special place. I will always have a special spot in my heart for Adams 12. And I'm going to miss all of you and my Adams 12 family big time. Even though I'm very excited for my next opportunity, I just wanted to let you know how appreciative I am of all of you and the experiences we've had together, and let you know that I'm going to miss you. So thank you so much. I do want to let you get to your agenda because I know we want to get some work done tonight. But I appreciate Jack and Aaron letting me be here and letting me just say hello and thank you and goodbye. And I'm just down the road. So if Dave wants to call me, or if Jack or Aaron want to call me and talk about something, or Lori or Jamie or whatever, any of you, whatever, we can always talk. I'm not going too far. So thank you for everything, guys.
Thank you, Tracy. There's going to be a big hole, a big void in this group with Tracy's departure. There's a lot that's happened kind of behind the scenes since this group was reconstituted. And my 4 years have really been valuable, and I've learned a ton from Tracy. And what's nice is Chris Godowski and Jamie and Lori have already agreed to meet and discuss what the transition might look like. So the support is still there from the district, and that's great. But I just wanted to say thank you publicly. You've been a real force, positive force in this group, both directing, leading, and in some cases handing the reins off when it's appropriate. And so we've really enjoyed it.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. And I just feel like it's been great to watch this group grow and evolve and really own empowerment along the way. So thanks, Jack.
All right. I will take you up on that offer to call, by the way. That'll happen at some point. All right, we're going to move along. We have a quick UIP simplification update, and this project got a little more complicated than we thought at the beginning of the year. One of the things that I want to remind this group is that while we have these two projects, we're also testing work models that we created to make the experience more rewarding and engaging for the members. That was some strong feedback that we got, and this is our first attempt with these two projects to make that happen. I want to pull this visual up. This is part of that flow chart that we introduced earlier this year over the summer. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see that? Good. We are doing the work and have been here in this oval, and this draft allowed for an update to the Board of Education and get some redirection as needed. And if I had a "you are here" sign, like on a map, that's where it would be, is right on top of that update to the Board of Education. The reason that that's necessary, and Erin and I have requested a meeting with Jamie and Lori to kind of reassess where we are. What we thought would be fairly simple in the context of simplifying the UIP for the general public, it really opened a lot more discussions than we anticipated. And it's in 6 different areas. One of them is access. How are the components of the UIP accessible to the public? Where are they accessible? Like that, those are some areas that discussions began. The process around the UIP, what's involved in generating one, updating one, measuring it, that circular flow that repeats itself. Terminology was a third area when we talk about the language that's used, the edu-speak, if you will, versus layman's terms, and what should be, what we should be doing in that area to simplify. Then the delivery, that's really where we thought we'd be focusing. Is it a graphic, is it a document? There was some discussion recently about videos or animations, and all of this is good and powerful, but we want to make sure we're moving in the right direction so that we're respecting district time and district resources and honoring what the board really wants as a deliverable in the end. The 5th component is the audience. Who is this simplification designed for? And we're finding that that means different things to different groups. And that's important to acknowledge and work around. And then the last one is engagement. And that was right in the memo from the board about this work. One of the goals is to engage the public around school district matters and the UIP specifically. And so how we have different avenues for calls to action from the community or the stakeholders who are interested in getting involved in one way or another to support where we're going, maybe to offer opinions on a different direction, or to assist in some other way. So those 6 areas really popped up when we thought it was just delivery. Access, process, terminology, audience, and engagement really ended up kind of complicating this project. So we're going to meet with Jamie and Lori, bring them up to date with some details, and we will reassemble as the DAC and work toward delivering something in May. My sense is that this is going to be a multi-year project. And I also want to specifically thank Mackenzie, who is with us tonight, and Derek, who could not be with us tonight. I think he's on kid duty with an ill spouse. But those two have put in quite a few extra hours behind the scenes working on this effort. And so I want to give them a thank you. If there aren't any questions, it was intended just to be an update and give you a status. Questions or comments, I will move on to the next agenda item. All right, thank you. The next item is related to the charter subcommittee, the formal subcommittee that we have. So Tara, I might be looking at you. We are looking for a volunteer to get involved short-term to meet with the district to determine what the 21-22 school year will look like with regards to the charter subcommittee. There is one renewal that is coming or has been submitted. So there will be some work, and there's been discussions in the past about how that work will get done. And we would like to meet with the appropriate folks at the district office to outline what that looks like for the year and potentially Jamie and Lori. So it's probably a couple of meetings outside of regular DAC to be scheduled. I would say 3 hours of additional time would be the job description. So if you'd like to raise a hand now, that would be great. If not, we will send out an email to the full group. We'd like to get that identified before the school year is over and have those conversations over the summer.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jack.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Tara, go ahead.
No, I just saying I'm happy to help. And I know I see Michelle on the call too, not that I'm volunteering her. But I know the two of us probably have, she has obviously experience at her school. So, but I'm happy to be a part of that, and I can bug Michelle later to see if she wants to join in.
That would be great. Tracy, did you have something?
I did. I just want to make sure that you all know it's public knowledge now that Kevin West, who is our current director of charter schools, charter liaison, he is retiring at the end of this school year. And so he'll be with us through June 30th. And we are currently in the process of interviewing director of charter schools, like replacements. And so he's doing that work with a committee that includes, some key district personnel who deal with charters, as well as charter school leaders and representatives. And I think finalist interviews will be coming in the next week or two, but the timeline's a little hazy for me because I don't know all the details. I just want to make sure you know that there will be a transition of leadership, and likely somebody other than Kevin West, that this group will be working with longer term on charter related work.
Is Amelia
Okay.
still in that?
No, Amelia left a couple months ago and went to Aurora. We have replaced her, and that's going well. That's more of a special education targeted, focus for that position, supporting our charter schools with anything special education related. And so I anticipate that position will also continue. But it kind of depends also on what happens with this leadership position. And the leadership position is the one mostly that will be working with this group. So
Right.
that's what depends on your work and impacts your work. So I want to make sure you knew that.
Great. Thank you.
Well, Tracy, true to form, if you can pull a string or two before Monday, if we could get maybe the initial meeting set up before Kevin leaves to get his veteran input, that would be good. And then we can do a follow-up with the new person.
Yeah, Jack and Aaron, I'll send an email to Kevin to just cue him up, letting him know that you two or somebody from DAC, you can delegate then if you'd like to, wants to meet with him to talk about some upcoming charter work and support that the DAC might need. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Tara. I appreciate that. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron now. The biggest chunk of time tonight is on the SAC initiative. I'm going to say, take it away.
Great. Thank you, everybody. I'm excited to share our initial draft of the survey analysis, and I see Michelle has joined. Hooray. So I will be co-presenting with Michelle this evening. I would also like to acknowledge Jessica Zivotofsky has done the quantitative analysis and the visuals on the survey results here. Unfortunately, she is also not able to attend this evening. And so just really want to make sure that her work is recognized and acknowledged. We spent quite a bit of time with these results, and we're really excited to share this with you. So with that, we're going to go ahead and dive in, and I'm going to share my screen here. We've got a nice presentation put together. And Michelle, I think what I will do is go ahead and drive the presentation. So go ahead and, I will play Vanna. Just tell me when you're ready for the next slide. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take it away. Hopefully, again, some of this information should be somewhat familiar given the analysis opportunity we had at the meeting in February. But as a quick reminder, and I guess a little bit of an update, I was really impressed with the returns that we got from the district or from the district administrators. I think, getting 33 returns with sort of a week turnaround was really impressive. We were able to work with Dave to get a little nudge for some folks to get a few more responses. Ultimately, we do still have 5 outstanding schools that we don't have responses for, but I'd really just like to be cautious about, this is absolutely not a, calling anybody out exercise. It's just sort of an awareness of where we're at. So we had a total of 47 responses. And as we dive into some of this analysis, I do want to share that 2 of the 4 district charters. So we do some disaggregation a little bit further in the presentation, and just want to let you know sort of who's in that category because those numbers are so small. Another potential request, Dave, if you're willing to put your analysis hat on, and if you have any questions or concerns, please flag those either during the presentation or afterward. We're really, want to make sure that we're doing right by accuracy and analysis. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle to walk through our themes.
Sort of first to start with, apologize for being late on video. I was driving my kids home from sports practice. So we were listening to everything in the car, but with no video. My son really wanted to pick 3 things and he was trying to figure out what in the car he could do. And he wanted to see everybody's, and it was pretty cute. But to get back on task here for the SAC survey, it was fun to do the deep dive. There was a lot of information. What was kind of fun about it was all the responses seemed to be really sort of transparent in nature or really honest. This wasn't we're going to grade the schools on what they can and can't do for a SAC, but where are you at? What do you know? What do you need? Those types of questions, and it was really some honest answers. So it was great to see that. One of the big overall observations that for the structure, every school is doing it a little different. It's not uniform across the district. Some SACs are put into their parent structure, so their PTO or their PTA. Some included in their events or fundraising committees. The charter schools include them in their board. Overarching board. So everybody does it a little different. So there's a lot of variability. We noticed that some of the administrators in some of the schools that are new or are in a transitioning role have asked for more support or have said like maybe next year we'll have a better handle on this. So there might be a need for those new administrators to get them more support on a SAC. Also, or sort of lastly, greater need for clarity on what a SAC does. What are the roles? Who should be involved? There were questions around that.
Do I get my Vanna moment? Are we ready?
Moment. Yep, it's a good pregnant pause there for you. Going through the survey, there were some things to celebrate. Some good moments. The schools that took their SAC and combined it with their other organizations seemed to have a greater volunteer base. They were able to pull more members or more easily pull members into their SAC. They talked about when they're part of these bigger organizations, how they can plan all school events, how they're able to do fundraising, and celebrate schools' achievements based off of what they've achieved through the UIP or academic goals. So there was, when you tie them together, there can be more of a whole school celebration or more oomph, I guess. Schools that had a functioning SAC found that they got some valuable feedback from those parents and the committees that some of the leaders felt that they got really good feedback, and it was good to move together in the same direction of a school to achieve goals together. They found that when they had a good participating base, that there was a good relationship between parents and staff, and it built a stronger community, and that those people involved became advocates for the school and were able to explain more of what was going on, similar to the same way the DAC helps advocate for Adams 12. So there were some good things that we learned coming out of the survey. Diving into priorities, we asked schools what their priorities would be for the SAC over the next 1 to 2 years. The majority of our responses talked about parent engagement. They needed more parents. They needed more parents to participate. They needed more parents to be educated to engage throughout the SAC process. That's what they really were hoping for the next few years. A lot asked for community representation. It was easier to pull parents, but they didn't know how to find a community member. And that was 6 of the responses. A few schools noted that the representation on DAC, the parents that were involved, were not representative of the school's demographic. So they wanted a larger variety to match their school's demographic. Other options, these last 2, or actually last 3, don't have any numbers next to them because they kind of encompass greater ideas than just parent engagement and community representation. Another big category was infrastructure. How do they communicate? How do they do agendas? How do they figure out what the calendar is? What are their responsibilities? And capacity building, which would be, what is a DAC? What is it supposed to do? How are they supposed to analyze the UIP? How do we get meaningful data or analysis out of these parents? So those were kind of the arching themes. What was interesting to note on this question is some of the responses were priorities for their SAC instead of the SAC. So we also got a lot of responses of how they were going to implement the UIP. So there was kind of some interesting juxtaposition there, that it wasn't just for the committee, but what the committee was going to do. What's kind of interesting about that was that when they talk about the priorities for the SAC of the UIP, none of the schools mentioned other priorities that the SAC does, like via statute. There's safety and budget. Very little of that was mentioned. Hold on a second, I need a sip of water here. One of the other questions asked about needs for their SAC. What did the school administrators need? What kind of support? And these are in order of most responses. A lot wanted examples, sample protocols. What's the calendar? How do you invite members? How do you run a SAC? What are the meetings? What are the topics? Some schools asked for exemplary SAC committees, like, could we see some? Could we see them in action? Can we see what they have? A lot asked for more engaged parents or more parents in general. An interesting note would be that we had 8 that said nothing, they need nothing, or they left it blank. So you can kind of interpret that in a couple ways. Either those were the schools that had high functioning SACs, so they knew where they were going, they knew what they were doing, or they were ones that needed so much help that they didn't know how to answer that question, I think.
So and just to clarify, we did see both of those situations where, nope, we're good. And they ranked themselves pretty high and were generally seemed to be high functioning. And then others, not the case.
Good point. Good point, Erin. A bunch asked for parent training to teach them, what is the UIP? What do they need to look at? How do they analyze school data? Some of the leadership, the school principals were like, we need help leading this, and how do we put it together? So training in general would be for that bullet. And then how to find a community member. How do you go outside your school, your parent community, and bring in some outside sources? So then we asked the schools to prioritize what they needed, what kind of support they would need for their SAC. And we gave them just some options that they could click on, and then one that was optional at the bottom that they could fill in. So here are the responses for the ones we gave them. So there was skill development, parent engagement, facilitation, those kind of things. Training of parents was up there as well. Communication, how do they communicate to their families? How do they get people to get involved? How do they reach outside to community members? And then what was interesting, a few of them wanted to network among other school leaders so that they could talk about the SAC, between different schools. Our next slide has all of the other options that were included, that were typed in. With the changing of the UIP, a bunch wanted to know how to plan the year, what year-long plan, how to calendar that. A few schools asked for incentives to get parents to join, like what could they possibly do to get more parent participation. Some talked about student engagement. Again, there's that non-community member that we keep seeing popping up. A clear job description for the SAC. So that kind of comes under skill building and training, how we would make that clear for what a SAC does and what kind of qualifications a parent would need. School budgeting process and UIP, again, would come under that training. And then equity work, working with demographics, getting parents of all backgrounds to come in and be part of the SAC committee. Something we noticed among all the responses is the frequency of meetings can be all over the place. The schools that seem to have a more organized SAC, a stronger participation, meet more often. Also, those that tie it in with a PTA or an events type committee also meet more often. We have some schools that only meet twice a year to kind of rubber stamp their UIP. Yeah, I got all those bullets.
Okay. And I guess I might just stop there for a moment while we're on sort of that sort of thematic analysis and just check in. Any questions or curiosities that kind of stand out from that initial portion?
I have a question. I'm just wondering if as a principal, do they get a kind of like a owner's manual type thing of what a SAC is when they become a principal of a school?
It doesn't look like it from the feedback I saw in our survey.
I say we're going to defer, I think, to Dave to describe sort of the state.
We share, the CDE puts together a district accountability manual that describes the whole accountability process every year, and we share that with principals every year. A big part of that, a certain portion of that is, here's the SAC, here's the roles, here's the frequency they should meet, and so forth. So that is available and sent to each principal every year. We send, basically what we do is we compile many resources, some from CDE, some that are ours, including timelines and so forth, and share a Google folder where all of that is contained with principals every year. So that's how we communicate what the expectations of the SAC are based on that. Also, we periodically request information from them about their SAC and answer questions when they do that. We reference that material in case they have any questions.
When I can speak from practical experience, I think I, obviously review those materials, but some of the just intangibles that I learned about facilitating our SAC at Horizon came from, serving on it as a teacher and then co-facilitating it with the principal who was in the role before me when I was an AP. And so there's just a lot of intangibles that you learn by being a member on a SAC prior to being a principal facilitator. And so I think one of the reasons why our SAC has been successful is because there was some modeling, and I knew some of the things that, as a member that I appreciated, that I've tried to transition into the role as a leader.
I think one question I have, which wasn't on the survey, which is fine, because I hear it often around, more parent engagement, student engagement. And I think any ability that we have, I don't know who we have to kind of break down what engagement means. It looks different. And I know it feels like I'm teasing it out. I think it's important. I know I often have thought about my own engagement and how it's shifted from one kid to the next. Involvement at school, and I'm engaged. It just is different. And I think it's maybe helpful to those that are trying to think through what does that mean, because I think sometimes then it's another way of saying we have parents that don't care, right? And I'm just being sort of transparent. That may not be what they're saying, but I want to ensure we think really and give that opportunity, however that might look. I'm definitely not asking for another survey, but whatever we choose for moving forward is thinking through how you define those terms so that schools might have really engaged parents. It doesn't look like showing up to a meeting. It doesn't look like. So I just want to think through that piece, because that is a big one, right? That most are asking about. So ensuring that whatever we think is a useful step forward is that piece really breaks down what that looks like and means.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tara. All right. I'm going to work through the next portion of the survey, and then we are going to have a little bit of time to discuss and debrief. So with that, again, full acknowledgement that this is Jessica's work that I'm presenting tonight. And so I'm not quite as 100% in depth on the analysis the way that she would be. But please don't let that stop you from posing questions, and we will make sure that any questions get answered. So just to orient you to the slide, at the top of the slide, we put the question. There's a series of questions that in some ways you could think of it as a self-assessment, where we asked the administrator of the building to rate their effectiveness on a scale of 1 to 5 in the variety of areas that the school accountability committee has responsibility. The graph that you see in front of you, so for example, on the far left, you'll see there's a rating of 1 of ineffective, and then there's a count over that bar. That is the number of respondents that gave themselves a 1. So we have one school that's rated themselves ineffective on this question. Couple of quick notes for analysis. We did run into a little bit of a challenge where we didn't have 100% of respondents for every single question. There were a couple of weird situations. The other is that we need to figure out how to lock our survey a little bit better, because sometimes we would get a range. And since 3.5 is not an option on this survey, anytime there was a range presented, we rounded to the middle. So whatever that more central number is, that's the direction we went. So anybody who really wants to geek out, I would say they were definitely isolated incidents, but it did make for some fun analysis challenge. So with this, the other thing you can see, again, the count presentation on the bar graph. And then what we tried to do was a little bit of disaggregation across the different types of schools that we have to kind of see where we're seeing potentially some swaying or differences. And so what you'll see is what is the average? And then what does it mean for elementary, middle, high, K-8, and our 2 charters? Okay, so again, interpret with caution for those small numbers, but that just kind of gives you a sense of their self-rating for each of these questions. Does this make sense? Okay. If there's any questions on the layout, please shout. So again, this was interesting in terms of the school improvement plan, the UIP. Again, some fairly normal, but I would say, leaning towards the high end for this one. Now, this I thought was really interesting. This was an area where folks seem to kind of struggle in terms of how the school accountability engages in that process of recommending how school money is spent. And there could be a variety of reasons. So again, we want to be really careful about attribution here. But I thought this is one of those that has definitely one of the more skewed responses towards the less effective side. So this was kind of interesting. Once again, back to the UIP, checking on the progress of the school improvement plan. Again, fairly normal with a little bit, again, leaning towards the ineffective side. And then this is another one, publicizing opportunities to serve on the school accountability committee. So again, these are all those sort of statutory responsibility areas. And so I think you're picking up on some themes here, both from the open responses as well as the ratings. And then here again, we have, in terms of that overall supporting of parent engagement. Seeing a lot of nodding and processing. You guys will all have access to these slides as well. So this is not your only view. Okay, so with that, are there any questions on the data analysis for these sort of self-assessment categories? Yeah, Lori. Yep, got that mute button.
I find this very interesting because if you look at the elementary, they have the lowest averages. And I tend to think, as a teacher and a parent, that you always see more parents involved at the elementary than you do at secondary. So this is very interesting.
Well, and again, I want to, and I think this is really important for us to think about, the scope of this really is about accountability, the school accountability committee, which, again, not rising to the top of, I would say probably some of your elementary parents, like this is, again, sort of figuring out what entering that space looks like. And, people aren't usually banging the doors down to jump in on accountability conversations. Tongue in cheek. Present company accepted, of course.
The previous slide, which is about communication, I think was interesting. I was surprised me a little bit. Just because, this is a good year in which, every form of communication was used in any form that could possibly happen, right? I mean, multiple ways, right? Repetitive, important ways. So anyway, so this is what's, I found this kind of interesting.
Tara, I did too. There was a free response question about how do you communicate your SAC, how do you do communication for SAC? And 5 schools actually put none. they had no communication. That's a good thing. Maybe we should do that. And I thought that was really interesting, the way in which our SACs communicate. Mostly it's by newsletter and website, but some do the phone, some do through their PTO, some did a dojo. I don't really know what that is. Billboard, staff meetings was where they told about the SAC. So everyone does it a little differently. But the none I thought was pretty interesting. You won't get parents if they don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Right,
and
just talking about parent engagement, if you're 5 of them are not like at any, it's just sort of, kind of, you know, it's sort of, yeah.
So I think one other sort of like bigger framing component of this, I'd just like to remind those, especially if you have areas of interest, this is not the end of the work. Like this is, again, this is us dipping our toe in and identifying lots of, let me step that back. There are no shortage of opportunities for asking questions and digging deeper. I think the bigger challenge is actually going to be prioritizing and like, how do we focus and sequence our work? So if you guys are okay, actually with that, what I have next for presentation and discussion. So based on, again, those sort of initial conversations and survey development, the survey responses, the analysis, recognizing that, you know, our recommendations are going to the board. And so we have drafted, hopefully, a nice manageable chunk of recommendations. And I think, and it's for the board, about what we should do. Or not what we should do, but what the board could do given this information. Set the vision and expectations to guide the work of the DAC, school accountability committees, and district staff. So I think really, and you know, we can talk about some of the different options or how this might play out, but I think one of the big themes we saw was, you know, high levels of variability. I think, Tara, you called out, you know, the consideration around definitions. What do we mean? Lisa, your great question about, you know, what is done and provided. So if this is something that really we want to do, then getting on the same page about some of these things would be really helpful. The next is to prioritize centralized efforts to coordinate recruitment, communications, and training that can be a resource for those school accountability committees. So there's absolutely, this is a broad, sort of a broad category, but it's sort of the, how do we maximize our economies of scale, right? And I think Mackenzie, this idea about guidebooks, handbooks, and I think even what Kim identified, I think we have some bright spots even in the district that we could highlight and leverage. It's just, again, what's the forum and the structure through which we can support that happening. And then the last recommendation is that within that process of setting vision and expectations and sort of coordinating things, how do we really consider the flexibility to meet the variety of needs and contexts across the school district? So for example, what might the relationship look like with the charter schools within the district? And it sounds like, you know, that might be a good thing to get clarified given leadership transition. Some of our Title I schools have different requirements that they also need to meet. So how can we support them in maximizing their needs and expectations? I know in our processing group, I was with the secondary group, and we really kind of talked about how the needs of secondary and our AECs are a little different, and what that accountability committee could and should look like. So those right now are the 3 recommendations that we have to go to the board. And so what we'd like to do is, you guys are okay here. You get all my back end stuff. Set up we're going to split into 2 groups. And I think that should probably be sufficient. Roddy, I think we're just about ready. But what I'd like to do is, do the recommendations align with the data presented and the conversations we had in February. Any other feedback or clarification that we should get? And then, are there other things? So sort of parking lot ideas. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share with you all. Oh, sorry. Multi-screen management here.
Erin, can I ask a quick question?
Please.
This survey was sent to principals, yes? And that was
yes.
Okay. So not actual SAC members or parent.
Nope.
Okay. That just doing a quick check. Thanks.
No, absolutely. That is a really important check. So what I have dropped into the chat are 3 things. The first is the Jamboard, where we'd love to get some actual discussion, or, sorry. What are your thoughts, considerations? It also has the presentation from tonight. So if you need to go back and reference any of those slides, and then you also, if you really excited to dig into the data, the survey results, the full survey results are also shared there. So with that, are there any questions on the task, what we're going to be doing in our small groups? All right, Jack, with time management, what would you suggest for time? You're on mute. Got to be at least once.
Yep, 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, so Roddy, would you send us into 2 groups for 10 minutes? Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hello.
Okay, and we are not going to, I think for group one, I feel like we're in a pretty good place. Nothing that was super outstanding. Other than, obviously this is not it. There's still going to be a bit more work. Michelle and Jack, any major points that you think need to be elevated at this point?
We seem to hone in on number 3 with regards to statute and the ability to be flexible. So either understanding what statute requires of SACs or rewording number 3 to include what's able to be flexible and what that really means. I think everything else is pretty well covered by what we wrote.
Great. Okay, and with that, we're going to do some debriefing and next steps. I am going to do a quick check. Do we have a volunteer who has an interest in editing and or a very critical eye that might be willing to be a reviewer on our final report? Somebody who's not been living in this for the last 2 months?
Tara, what are you doing?
Something turnabout is
All
fair
I know
play.
is I volunteered Michelle at one point, and now Michelle, I love it. I love it. It's hysterical. It tells you we've been on the same committee too long. Is maybe what that means. I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. Tell me, Erin. I'm happy to connect with you. Part of it's just kind of due date, like deadline dates for it, and just ensuring
we got some time.
Okay.
We got some time because I'm going to tell you it's not in that space right now.
Okay.
This was the emphasis, but I just, like I said, want another set of eyes on it. That's not those of us who've been mucking with it for too long.
Yeah,
So
part of
thank you.
It's just a timing issue, right? Of other,
commitments,
day job things. But if it's 100 pages, then no. I'll find my boundary somewhere, Erin. I'm kidding. So yeah, I'm happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to connect with you via email or whatever.
Great. And with that, Jack, I'm handing it over to you, I think.
Excellent, thank you. I thought that was fantastic, by the way. It was the first time that I saw the data summarized and presented. So thank you for the effort. Michelle and Jessica, who's not with us tonight, and of course, Erin. I'm going to move to get us out of here at 8:30 on time. That's always my goal. The next item is a little bit of DAC structure work, just one topic tonight because it is going to become pressing here shortly. Our next meeting, by the way, on April 27th, which is a Tuesday, will be mostly focused on DAC structure work. Our internal workings. So that's sort of a cue for district staff. If you have other competing priorities, it might be a good night to take off, but you're always welcome. Tonight, Erin and I wanted to talk about the idea of opening up membership for the DAC for the 21-22 school year. Currently, the process, we gain members, new members, I should say, 4 ways. There are Board of Education referrals or recommendations that come in. There are district staff referrals and recommendations that come from a variety of methods, whether it's Tracy and her team interacting with community stakeholders or through other volunteer groups, but they learn of interested people. We get the occasional application through the website. We got 1 or 2 this year that we did put a hold on. And then through that, there's a conversation the past couple of years with DAC leadership, being Erin and I, most recently, about who would be a good fit, what subcommittee that they would plug into. And then that list is turned over to the board for approval, which is how the process works. Aaron and I would like to ask the question of the whole group about whether we should open enrollment up or membership up for the coming school year. And I will speak for myself and invite Aaron to comment before we break out one more time for just a few minutes to discuss it. My energy on this group, especially the last year and a half, is to provide as positive an experience as possible for DAC members. That is what all of the structure work is about. That's what the workflow model is, the memo of understanding, this being a test year. And as I say that, if we were to bring new members in, I feel like we're still in a rebuilding year, and we're not in a good place to ramp new members up with training or onboarding. And we very likely would be jumping right back into our typical subcommittee work in the fall on normal timelines. And I feel like this group and Aaron and I specifically have a lot more work to do with regards to succession planning, onboarding, training, all of that stuff that frankly the SACs are asking for as well, that we can put in place before we invite a new batch of members. So that's my nutshell position. Aaron, if you have anything to add, I would say do that now. You're muted.
I think I reiterate most of what Jack said. And I think as we go into our breakouts, I would just really ask that you consider your experience and what you would want or how that might translate for somebody else coming in. And this, again, this is not a predetermined thing. And I think, again, we want to be really careful, in my estimation, about creating positive experiences and not burning social capital with folks. So those are just sort of the concerns. And I think we, again, as Jack mentioned, our next meeting, we're going to devote some big chunks of time, but really kind of just want to get a pulse check on this one.
Yes, Aaron, I don't know if you set up a Jamboard for this. I'm prepared to take notes since we're at about 10 minutes
we're
left
just we're doing auditory on this one.
Okay, great. Roddy, if you could break us out and bring us back at 8:28, if you have that capability, just a couple minutes left in the meeting so we can wrap up. I believe we are back. Can I get a thumbs up that you can hear me? Great. Excellent feedback. I will tell you from my group, the overall message was to add new members, but not necessarily make a big recruiting effort to do so. I would imagine Aaron will debrief me quickly, and we will follow up on the next DAC meeting, April 27th. Again, most of that night will be DAC structure, and we'll hit this as well. Before we head out, it is 8:30. I want to get you out on time. Just one more sincere thank you to Tracy. Just a godsend for us, and I have thoroughly enjoyed working with her in the role of DAC, and really going to miss her, but very happy for her opportunity down the street.
Great DAC send off, Tracy.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Aaron. We're going to make sure you guys get the support you need as well. You know.
All right. Good night, everyone. Lori and Jamie, I think we're going to hang around a couple more minutes and do some scheduling.
Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a great
everybody.
week.